This is Time Signatures with Jim Ervin, a podcast and radio program presented by the Capital Area Blues Society in Lansing, Michigan.
Driving up and down these Michigan roads, yeah.
And now, here he is, your host, Jim Ervin.
Baby, I'm home.
Well, hello there, and thank you, Parker. I'm Jim Ervin, and this is Time Signatures. My special guest today is a gentleman I had a wonderful chat with not all that long ago, but sometimes, there's just more to talk about, so that requires at least one more round for now. You might recall that his musical journey started as somewhat of a happy accident when he and his classmate researched and ultimately recorded an album entitled I Sing the Blues. That project kicked off a career spanning more than 30 years, and his music has been recorded by the likes of Etta James, Solomon Burke, Screamin' Jay Hawkins, and Sir Tom Jones, just to name a few. We're going to talk about all of that and more, so let's get at it. Earl Thomas, welcome back to Time Signatures, my friend, and I feel like we've established a friendship because we've had more than a few conversations since that initial interview, and I just had to have you back.
Well, thank you. I'm really, truly honored, and as I've said to you, you're fun to talk with, on or off camera, and I hope you don't mind me saying, but I hope I'm the one who coined this. That you're like the Oprah Winfrey of the blues interviewing time signature, Jimmy, because you're really good, man. You really make it
Thank you.
Comfortable and easy to speak, and I thank you for that. Thank you for having me.
Well, I appreciate that. That's very humbling, and it's just something I have a passion to do. So to get us where we need to be, and we're going to talk a little bit about you and your classmate, how you produced the album, with no thoughts whatsoever of becoming a musician. But that album made its way into the world where it caught the attention of Herb Cohen, president of Bizarre Straight Records, didn't it?
Yes. And I didn't know who Herb was. I didn't know how important he actually was in the music business, what a major player he was. Even when he took me to Switzerland to the Montreux Jazz Festival and introduced me to, full on, I was sitting next to Bob Dylan. I had a conversation with Ringo Starr and Joe Walsh and Todd Rundgren and Gladys Knight and all these big stars. And I'm thinking, I wasn't thinking of them as my colleagues. Herb was thinking of them as my colleagues, but I didn't know that. He assumed that I knew because we had made this album. And I think I've learned later that the album was, they thought we were pros. They thought we were professionals. They didn't realize that we were just two students who followed the instructions in this book and just, put these songs together. I never thought of myself as a songwriter. I just wrote these songs to put on the album for the class project. And suddenly, then Etta James comes. I learned by rote that I'm in the game. So, and I appreciate the royalty check.
And it's really, really cool because since our interview, you are well aware, I've picked up not one, but 2 copies of that album on vinyl, which is, I don't know how many copies were put out there initially. Do you remember?
1,000.
So I have 2
of this vinyl.
Yeah,
1,000 were created.
I have 2 of those. One is actually signed by you, and one is still sealed in the plastic. And I'm not splitting the seal on that for nothing. It's so cool because the one that I bought initially that signed was already open. And the vinyl's in great shape. So I got to listen to it and really absorb, because I know that you repackaged that album for your first album. I wanted to hear the real thing.
Herb Cohen and those guys did that.
Yeah, I wanted to hear the real thing. I wanted to hear what you did initially. But, since we've already done the official first interview stuff, I'm all about collecting some really good stories from you. And I have to begin with the late Etta James. Take us inside that initial phone call, would you please?
Okay. We had made the album, we got the record deal. We went to Montreux. I was introduced to Quincy Jones and all these people.
Wow.
You know, again, not knowing that I was being presented, you know, as the new blues guy, not how do I say this? Blues, not the Blues Music Award blues, but the Warner Electra Atlantic Records blues, like
Sure.
BB King
Yeah.
and you know, so not the Alligator Records, but the, you know,
Right.
the other guys. But I didn't know anything about that. I didn't know anything about the music business. Had no clue why he was introducing me, why he took me there, what this was all about. Anyway, got the record deal. That all happened. One day I was just sitting at home and I get a phone call, and the voice on the other end of the phone said, "Hi, Earl, it's Etta James." And honestly, I did not. I mean, that was so far-fetched. That could have been like, "Hi, Earl, it's President Reagan." You know what I mean? I just, you know, it made no sense to me. I thought it was my friend, Shanita Royster, playing a trick, playing a joke on me. And I said to her, I go, "Come on, Shanita, I know it's you. I'm trying, stop playing games." And then I hear that lady on the other side of the phone say, "No, this is really Etta." And her voice, this is the thing, her speaking voice was very similar to her singing voice, because she's like a low contralto, alto singer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I hear this, "No, this is really Etta." And I just, it was like my head just blew off. I don't know. It's like suddenly I went, "Oh my God, that's Etta James." And then it hit me that this is Etta James. And I said to her, "Oh my God, Miss James, if I come out, I'm going to try to be cool," but I totally lost it. And I said, "If my mother knew that I was talking to you right now, she would just be beside herself. My mother loves you." And I start telling her all about my mom and how my mom, loved her music, and that I could tell what kind of mood my mother was in by the Etta James song that was on the stereo. And in fact, I put this in my show where I go, if Something's Got a Hold on Me was playing, that meant that, it was payday and the refrigerator was full and mama was happy and cooking bacon and eggs and pancakes. But if Rather Go Blind was on, that meant that mama was probably drunk and waiting on your no good daddy to come home so she could remind him that he was not her first choice. And she laughed at that.
Wow.
She laughed. And we had a conversation. We actually had a conversation. The way she came to know me was apparently we had the same publicist.
Oh,
and
cool.
When she called the publicist, or the publicist called her, he had to put her on hold. And they were playing my music in the on hold music. And so she said when she got off the phone, she says, "Who's that boy that I was just listening to?" And he goes, "Oh, that's Earl Thomas." And then she put me together with him. And then Herb came to me and said, "Have you ever heard of a singer called Etta James?" I'm like, "Yes. She wants to do I Sing the Blues." What? Like, again, I didn't know how to receive that because I hadn't thought of myself as a songwriter. It's like, she does? Like, why? Why would she want to do my song? And then she told me why. And it was because she said, "This is new blues, but still blues. It's not a caricature, my words, of the blues. This is actually a continuation of the story."
Yeah.
Okay, I don't remember exactly how she said that, but basically that's what she said. It was a continuation of the story. Whereas, if I had just made some imitation of blues, then maybe she wouldn't have been so interested. But the reason she was interested in mine was that it was clearly to her a continuation of the art form. No,
Wow.
I take that back. Not art form. It's not an art form. It's a communication, a spiritual, emotional, psychological, sociological communication. And she recognized that.
Now, I got to ask you, man. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
And when you hear her, and I also love to say that I was writing that song as an observer, right? She knew what she was saying. I knew what I was writing about, but she knew what she was singing about. And when you hear her sing that song, you can tell.
Yeah. And
You
I'm going
dig?
to make sure that a link goes up for this song because Earl, you did a great job, but I'm sorry, she kicked your ass on this
She
song.
kicked my ass, dude. I know that. Are you kidding me? Shit. I sing her version of when I do the song now. I'm actually imitating her. How about that? She totally sang that song, man. Yeah.
What was that like the first time you heard Etta's version? How did that feel?
Okay, I can tell you exactly how that felt. It was on my birthday, 1994. It was on August
Okay.
29th, 1994. I was in Hell, Norway, performing at the Hell Blues Festival.
Okay.
And I was staying at the Rika Hotel in Hell, Norway. And I was watching CNN International. And they were doing an expose on Etta James. And so I'm watching this thing, you're watching, they're going, oh yeah, Etta James has a new album coming out and blah, 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 blah. And the camera went on Etta singing my song on
Oh
CNN
man.
International. And I got to tell you, I was very proud. I was truly, truly proud. And I didn't at that time recognize the importance of that historically, the importance of that, but did I did feel very proud of myself, and
As well you should.
and it was an honor.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like she was just going through the motions, blah, blah, blah. No, she
No.
she embodied the song. She took that into her own personal life experience, and she put her own personal life experience into the song.
Very much
And
like Rather Go Blind, in my
very
opinion.
much.
Very much.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
I'll tell you what she said to me about Rather Go Blind. When we were
Okay.
talking that day when she called me, we're talking, and I'm telling her my mom stories and stuff. And she goes, well, with a voice like that, you ought to do one of my songs. And I go, well, I always like that Rod Stewart song that you do. And she said, wait, I go, Rather Go Blind. And she totally corrected me. She's like, let me tell you something. I wrote that song. Rod Stewart didn't write that song. I didn't know she wrote it, dude. I'd heard her sing it, but I didn't know that she actually wrote it. I thought that Rod Stewart wrote it because I'd heard his
Wow.
version of it, and I thought she covered Rod, but no, she corrected me. Yeah.
How cool
And
is
I
that?
do Rather Go Blind in my show.
Very nice. Very nice. Is that something you're going to include on an album at some point?
I've recorded it already a couple of times.
Well, I guess I'm going to have to go back through the CDs and listen because I've got them. I mean, I guess I'm being lazy. Now you're correcting me.
Did I gotta send you my YouTube? One of my biggest YouTube songs is me doing Rather Go Blind at
Okay.
Music in Switzerland.
All right.
And also at Ealing in London.
Wow.
Versions I do. Yeah.
So, Earl, following that recording, you've got, of course, you're riding high, I can imagine. But now you get an opportunity to tour with Etta for a little bit, didn't you?
Yeah, for about 6 months. And it was intended to be about 10 months.
Wow.
She fired me.
Okay.
I was fired.
Go
I was
ahead.
fired by the diva herself. We were doing great, man. I was as a duo, me and this dude Heine Anderson. We were doing vocal and guitar duo, and we opened every show for about 6 months. And we did one of the show, and one of the shows that we did was at the Masonic Hall in San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
And the mistake that I made, okay, was I was selling merchandise, and I was doing very well selling my merchandise. But because everybody already had her CDs, nobody had mine. So I had these long lines of people during intermission just
wow.
I was just hand over fist making money. Well, at this particular night, they blinked the lights to indicate that the show was getting ready to start and people needed to return to their seats. Well, I had a line of about 50 people still waiting to buy CDs, and I didn't stop selling.
Oh, no.
I kept selling. Her show started. But these 50 or so people were, trying to get back into their seats. And they wouldn't allow people to go in while she was singing. But when the song stopped, they would let you come in and you go. And so there were a lot of people, getting to their seats. So excuse me, getting to their seats in the middle of her set. And that was rather upsetting to her, as it would have been to anybody.
Sure.
Right. So it was rather upsetting that, people were interrupting her, distracting audience members, Then the next show we did was in Anaheim at the House of Blues. I would never do an encore, even though I was requested to do encores. I never did encores. But on this particular night, the stage manager came to me and he went like this. And I go, no, I don't do encores. He goes, and so I assumed that, she wasn't prepared that they weren't ready. And then he wanted me to do an encore. He was going off of the audience's reaction.
Oh,
I later learned. Anyway, I did an encore. She heard that. She was in her dressing room because on this particular night, this was after 9/11, you couldn't park the tour buses in the same place that they had normally been parked. So she wasn't able to go from tour bus to stage, which is what she had done the entire tour. This particular night, she was in the dressing room, heard my entire set, and then heard the encore. The next day, I was gone. So, it's still an honor. I got to tour with Etta James for 6 months and get fired by her.
Well, there's other people out there that have been fired by the greats in the blues too. Matter of fact, I'm waiting to interview Tony Coleman, TC Coleman, who played drums for B.B. King for 25 years, got fired 5 times, and got hired 6 times. So there's got to be some.
B.B. King. He does a great B.B. King impersonation, dude.
I bet he does. He worked with them forever,
One of the greats. I'm gonna tell you something he did. That was a beautiful.
Right, go ahead.
As BB, he goes, that Earl Thomas, he's really something. I got good B.B. King stories too.
That's cool. Now, in some of our conversations, you talked about others that recorded your music. Screamin' Jay Hawkins, for example. How about that one? You got a good story about him?
I didn't get to meet him, and to be honest with you, I wasn't really familiar with his work. I knew his I Put a Spell on You, but I didn't really know the body of work that he had.
Okay.
But I learned all of that with his recording of my song, Get Me Some, which, by the way, if you look that up, it says a different songwriter, but that person whose name appears is not, that's wrong. But I decided not to sue. I'm not going to get involved in all that. But I Am the Cool is my song. And I'll tell you, one of the lines in that song, and the guy who sort of tried to claim ownership, he doesn't know this, but there's a line in the song where I said, I was invited over to England to have tea with the Queen. She said, Earl, you're the coolest man that I have ever seen. She said, tell me what you want, baby, and I'll try to throw it down. What I actually said was, I want to be the queen. So she gave me the crown. But we changed it to, I want to be the king. So she gave me the crown. But what I actually originally said was, I want to be the queen. So she gave me the crown. The guy who took the song didn't know that. He wouldn't have known that. He wouldn't have known that little trivia.
That's cool. All right. You mentioned BB. Let's hear some BB.
Oh, BB.
Do you want to ruminate on that one? I got another one I can ask you about.
No, I'm having a moment.
Okay.
BB King was the kindest man. He was so kind and so generous. We met at Piazza Blues Festival in Switzerland. I knew he was on the bill. I never expected to meet him. I never thought I knew I would go and see his show, but I certainly never thought I would meet him. Sure. So they had 2 areas. One area backstage was for us up and comers, right? And then there was the one area where all the stars, like BB King and all the big stars were in their area. And so I'm over in the area with the up and comers, and I see Keb Mo walking toward me, coming in our direction. I was like, oh, there's Kevin. Hey man, what's going on? He goes, Earl, come this way, come with me. And I go, oh, okay, where are we going? He goes, no, just come with me, come with me. And so I'm walking with Keb Mo toward the stage, and BB is getting ready to go on, okay? And I see that BB is sitting at the top of the steps going onto the stage, right? And I go, is he going to take me to meet BB King? Oh, wow. So we go up those stairs, and BB King is sitting. I had gone on just before BB, and he was sitting there, and he took my hand in both of his hands, and he really looked me in the eye, and he said, man, Earl, and this is a quote, you took me to church, not church, church, unquote. And I was like, oh, Mr. King, thank you, or whatever I said. Fast forward 10 months, San Diego, California. I get the call from a club here called 4th and B, big club downtown. And they said, we'd like to have you open for BB King. Oh, wow. Yes, absolutely. And so the rules are this. You have the dressing room, but when BB's bus arrives, you have to clear out of the dressing room and, leave the room for his people. No problem. So we're there. We do our show. Full house, of course. We do our show. We go to the dressing room, and the guy goes, okay, BB's bus just pulled up, and so we're packing our stuff to get out of the dressing room. As I'm walking out of the dressing room, I hear this voice behind me say, is that Earl Thomas? And I turn around, and there's BB King in the doorway of the dressing room going, hey, man, how you been? I mean, he's just like talking to me like we're old pals. And I'm like, oh, I'm good. Now, how he remembered me from Piazza Blues Festival, shaking his hand just before he went on, I'll never know. But he did. And he invited, he says, where are you going? And I said, well, they told us we had to leave the dressing room when you got here. He said, oh, no, stay here. You want some food? They had a big platter and food and drinks and stuff all out for him. So we totally hung out in the dressing room with BB King. Okay. Third time I met BB King, I get a call from Claude Nobbs at Montreal Jazz Festival. BB is going to be performing his final European date at the Montreal Jazz Festival. And he's going to invite special guests to be part of his jam session. And I, as it turns out, was one of those special guests.
Holy cow.
On the stage, I'll send you the photograph. On the stage is me, BB King on my right, Gladys Knight on my left, and I can't remember everybody else, but there were several of us sitting in line with BB King.
Sure.
And I jammed with him twice, actually. The time before, I also did a song with him. But this was his final show. It was an invitation only. And I was one of those people invited. Then another time, I hung out on his bus after the show for a long time. And I lost those pictures. I had some really great pictures that I dropped my camera and it broke, and I lost those pictures. But yeah, BB King was a very cool guy, and he really appreciated what I was doing. And that again, coming from BB King and Etta James and people of their generation,
yeah,
tells me that I am continuing that story.
Yes, sir.
That it's not an imitation game. It really is a continuation of that story as a griot. Albert Collins is another one. He was very, Joe Louis Walker, very encouraging. And that really, Denise LaSalle, she was a great songwriter. She really was complimentary. And I have to say that means a lot.
Now, you use the word griot again, as you did in the first interview.
Yeah.
For the benefit of those who may not know what that word means, would you please expound a little bit?
Okay, I'm going to go to Google because
That's what I did.
the definition in Google is very succinct,
Uh-huh.
and um, I really appreciate.
Well, it's important for people to understand from where you speak because, and
Right.
you've made references to imitators, you made references
Yeah.
to continuing the story. We're going to get to that in a moment.
Yeah.
But we need to understand the word griot and what that means as well.
Okay. So the Google definition: a griot, Griot is the spelling, is a West African troubadour, historian, storyteller, poet, diplomat, or musician. Griots are revered among society, and some are considered divine healers, medicine men, or conduits between the living and the dead. The position is hereditary and passed down from generation to generation. And as I mentioned to you, I did a DNA test and
Yes,
found
sir.
that I come from a long line of musicians and warriors in West Africa. I learned all this after I knew the definition of griot,
Yes, sir.
and after I began to consider myself a griot. Then I find out that my actual family of origin, on my father's side, the paternal side, was a tribe known for their music and their warrior ability,
Very cool.
and were in part very instrumental in the elimination of slavery, the slave trade in Africa. It continued in the United States and other places,
Yeah.
but it ended in Africa. And and my family's tribe was one of the tribes that made that so.
Very cool. Very cool. Now, you told me I had to ask you about Aretha Franklin. So let's hear it.
Okay, here you go. Okay, so I got the gig opening for Aretha Franklin at her first time back on the West Coast in like 30 years, because she doesn't fly, so she didn't fly, so she hadn't been out here for a long time. So I thought, oh my God, I got this. What an honor! So we get to the venue, Humphreys Concerts by the Bay. It's a big concert hall here in San Diego, outdoor concert hall. We get there, and I mean, this place is packed to the gills, man. There's people on top of people. And I get there and I go, I had a chilling thought. Oh shit. None of these people are here to see me. they might be polite and tolerate me long enough for the Queen of Soul to come on, but they ain't here to see me. And I got very nervous. I got really afraid, right? Because it hit me. I hadn't thought about it like that at all. So we're backstage, and the stage manager comes and says, okay, 5 minutes to showtime. Okay, so the guitar player, I did a duo again. He goes out and he is getting his, stuff together, and I hear a spattering of applause, right? And I think, oh, they know we're getting ready to start. People are, applauding like this. So I go to the curtain and I look out the curtain. There's like a walkway that goes all the way to the entrance. And I look out this curtain and I see that the reason people are applauding is because Aretha Franklin is walking in from the entrance toward the stage with these 4 gigantic bodyguards, these big linebacker, and she's waving at the crowd as she's coming in like this. That's the actual opening act, right? Yeah. Now she had to approve. She did have to approve us. You could only be either a comedian or a duo or a solo. You couldn't be a band, right? So she approved us, okay? And they told me that she had to see our demo tape video and say yes or no. She said yes. So, that's how we end up getting. So I'm seeing this and I go, oh man, they see that she's, what am I going to say? I'm thinking I got to say something clever because, they know she's here. Now they really are going to be like, okay, Earl,
looking at their watches.
Yeah, exactly. So Aretha Franklin walks in, And I'm standing there. There's me and all these people, all these press people. I'm clearly dressed in this. I had this fabulous blue Indian embroidery suit. I was dressed to kill. She walks in. Okay, you be me, I'll be Aretha. She walks in and she goes, yeah. And she turns and walks away just like that. I swear to God. She's like, yeah. And then turns at her big fat ass. Just this big. I mean, she was a big girl. She's like, boom, 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 boom. And I'll tell you something else about Aretha. She's actually very beautiful, physically beautiful. I never thought she was, when you see her on television or on album covers, I didn't ever think of her as a beautiful woman. But she actually was lovely. Like,
had a natural
really,
beauty.
Yeah. She was just well structured. And even as a large woman, she was a beautiful, beautiful. But she totally dismissed me in front of all these cameras and all this. The news is there. So I'm like, wow. Okay, so now what? So I go out on stage and I go, I know you all know who's here. Yay! Well, I'm here for the same reason as you, but I have the best seats in the house. And that broke the ice, and the audience was very cool with me.
Nice.
It gave the impression, my friend told me, who was in the audience, he goes, yeah, it sounds like you and Aretha were back drinking champagne backstage. Yeah, that was my goal. I wanted them to think, yeah, I'm out there hanging with Aretha. But the truth is, Aretha just absolutely dismissed me. And
wow. Wow. All right. And now you've had people record your music, and generally they reach out to you ahead of time. Yeah. But there was this one time that someone was performing your song live. I believe it was in Vegas. And you found out about it secondhand. Now, I got to hear that story, Earl.
Okay. I get a phone call from a friend who said, Earl, I think Tom Jones is doing one of your songs. And I go, what? No way. I don't know Tom Jones. And I mean, again, that's like Etta James calling me on the phone. Sir Tom Jones, how would he doesn't know who I am.
Right.
How is that possible? He goes, no, I went to see him. Oh, and then he goes, no, my wife made me go see him in Vegas, and he's doing one of your songs. And I go, I don't think, what's the name of it? He goes, I can't remember. Okay, I don't think so. So then he calls me back 2 days later. They apparently went again. And he goes, I am absolutely certain Tom Jones is doing one of your songs. And I go, again, I don't think so. And I let it go. And so, some weeks go by or some days go by or whatever. I'm just on YouTube watching Tom Jones, just like I watch anybody. It could be anybody, Ike and Tina Turner, Tom Jones, Aretha, whoever, Wilson Pickett. I'm watching Tom Jones. It's not unusual to be loved by anyone, And I see on the little sidebar thing, it says Tom Jones sings the blues. And I go, oh, you know what? Let me see what Tom Jones singing the blues sounds like. I click on that, and he's singing my song called Get Me Some. He is singing my song. And now this is when I lived up in the Redwood Forest up in Humboldt County. So I was alone in my little house in the big woods. And I was like, oh my God, Tom Jones is singing my song. It was like that. Get me. And I called everybody, dude, Tom Jones is singing my song. Look at that. I start sending it out to all these people.
Oh, wow.
And so what I did was I decided that I was going to see if I could contact his manager, somebody. So I go to his website, and I see his manager is this guy called Sandy, whatever. And so I wrote to Sandy, and I said, I'm Earl Thomas. I'm the songwriter of Get Me Some. Would you please tell Sir Tom Jones how much I appreciate him doing my song. And I just think he's just doing such a great job. I'm so honored. Please let him know that. Well, lo and behold, Sandy wrote me back. And he goes, Tom loves the song. He does it in every show. Oh, and by the way, I had noticed that I was getting these really big royalty checks for like 6 months before this conversation even came up. I had I never looked at my statements. I just, cash the check. And so when I get those kind of numbers, it's usually because one of my songs has been put in a movie or is on a TV commercial or is on a TV show. So I don't actually look at the list of songs and where they're being played anymore.
Right.
And so, so I just, I'm getting these large. So then I realized, wait a minute. And I go back and it's get me some. And when you're I think, what do they call them? A top tier artist, like a Tom Jones, Tina Turner, Aretha, that's like considered top tier. Whenever they play live, it's, they have to write down what songs they're doing. And it's just like having your song on the radio or on a TV show. You get paid for that. And so I was getting these huge royalty checks, man. And I, my checks are really, they're healthy, but every once in a while they are, really healthy. So it was like, oh my God, he's doing Get Me Some, and he's doing them all over the world. In Australia and Japan and China and the United States and England and Europe. And I'm like, right on time. So anyway, I said to Sandy, can I, thank him? And when he called me back, I go, well, is there a chance I could ever come and see him? I see that he's going to be in Vegas. He's in Vegas. And Sandy goes, absolutely. You just come to that. When do you want to come? I told him, we'll have tickets for you at will call.
Nice.
I get to Vegas, get to the MGM Grand Auditorium, 20,000 people, right? I get my tickets. I get my seat, which is right in the middle, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows from the stage. And I'm sitting there. Tom Jones comes out, and dude, even when he was in his advanced years, I think he was probably at that time in his 70s, 60s or 70s, you could tell that Tom Jones was the man, okay?
Yeah.
When he was in his 40s and 30s, he was really the man, okay? He was such a stud, He still carried it like this and sang like a man he could sing. And so he gets through almost the entire set. He hasn't done Get Me Some. And I say to my friend that went with me, I go, I don't think he's going to do it. But it's okay. I got to see Tom Jones up close and personal. Even if he doesn't do my song, I don't care. And then Tom goes, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to do a song now by a man called Earl Thomas. And he is right there. And the spotlight in this gigantic auditorium came bing right on my seat.
Oh, man.
And I'm like, oh my God. And my friend goes, stand up. You're supposed to stand up. And I go, oh yeah. And I stand up and I'm like, yeah, man, like this. And then he does Get Me Some. And he just nails it, right?
How cool.
And that was the moment. And then they finished the show, okay? And I was thinking we were going to leave, but he had sent his people out to collect me and my friend, and we were going to go backstage. Before they got there, did you know that there are Tom Jones impersonators the way there are Elvis impersonators?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, neither did I. I know there are now, though. There are. I had no idea that there were Tom Jones impersonators. But after the show, when I was because I'm in the middle, so I had to wait for people to exit. As soon as I get out to the aisle, I'm surrounded by like 5 dudes who are all dressed like Tom Jones. They have their hair done like Tom Jones. And each one of them has a different era of Tom Jones. And I was like, oh, I don't know what to. And then his security people came. And as soon as they saw the security people, they disappeared. They dissipated. They were gone.
Wow.
And then I was like, I was a little traumatized, I'll be honest with you.
I'll bet.
So then we go backstage. But then I learned that I'm going backstage. So I'm like rejuvenated. But we go backstage and we're in his dressing room, which is the nicest dressing room I have ever seen in my life. I mean, this is like a condo. It's huge and really nice. And there's a bar over to the left. And I see all these famous people, like I saw this country star, Kenny Chesney.
He was Kenny
there.
Chesney.
Kenny Chesney was there. Garth Brooks was there.
Wow.
All these big stars were all at the bar talking, hanging out. And so I'm standing in the middle of the room and I see this long hallway and I look up and I see Tom Jones come walking down the hallway by himself. He's changed clothes, got himself together. He comes walking down and all these famous people are going, Tom, Tom, Tom. And he just totally ignored them and came walking right up to me. And he's like, Earl Thomas. We shook hands and he's like, man, I love that song. I'm going to do a blues album. And when I do it, I want to see your catalog. I really appreciate your songwriting. And I'm just standing there like, oh, again, like Etta James, like, oh, and I got to tell him how when we were kids, my brothers and I, we would watch the Tom Jones Show back in the 60s. And we loved it because he would always bring a girl out of the audience and dance with her as the show was closing. And my brothers and I would always critique the girl dancer. They'd be like, oh yeah, she can't dance. Oh no, that one could dance. That girl last week, she could really dance. Did you see her doing the funky chicken? And so
Oh, wow.
he got a kick out of that. He got a real kick out of that.
Wow.
But I'll tell you something, he was so cool, man. He was just like a cool dude, we just talked and it was great. Yeah. I got a nice photograph of him and me.
Very cool. Now, we got to turn the page here for a bit because in many of our conversations since we met a couple of months ago, it always seems to end up with what you described to me as your future TED Talk. By definition, a TED Talk is a short, powerful presentation intended to share ideas worth spreading.
Yes.
And based on our chats, I would agree that your position is, in fact, worth consideration. And quite honestly, I find this discussion to be intriguing. So, Earl, I'm going to turn the floor over to you. Let's hear your TED Talk.
Okay, well, let me first qualify and say that I'm going to refer to my notes because
absolutely.
I haven't solidified my thesis yet. I know basically what my TED Talk is about, but I'm still gathering my thoughts. And
let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, once the man gets rolling, you'll understand and he won't need the notes. Trust me.
Yeah.
Just me.
I have a few points that so my TED Talk, the overarching premise of my TED Talk is that the blues and gospel was the only free speech of the African American from about 1872 to 1972.
Okay.
As a result of the Jim Crow laws that were implemented in 1873 in the South. The music that we all know and love as the blues was not solely for entertainment. It had a psychological component. It had a sociological component.
Okay.
And I feel that is, I don't want to say it's overlooked, but it's certainly not part of the discussion when people talk about the history of the blues. When people talk, usually when I hear people talking about, keeping the blues alive and the history of the blues and the Blues Museum and in Memphis and the Blues Foundation, all this, it's always coming from an entertainment position. And it maybe touches on the harsh reality, but it really doesn't go very deep. And that harsh reality, that is the impetus of the blues, was very, very, very harsh, generationally harsh. I'll give you one example. My grandparents and my parents received the right to vote at the same time. My parents were 25 years old. My grandparents were in their 50s. Before 1965, my grandparents nor my parents could vote. And they were part of a whole generation of people who, from about 1873, could not vote. And so their lives were the product or the result of the people who could vote. And many of those people did not care for Black people at all, and could and would and did kill them. There's a reason why 6 million people migrated out of the South. 6 million people aren't going to migrate unless things are really bad.
Yeah.
And things were really bad in the South. The devil at the crossroads that we've romanticized, Robert Johnson, to whom Robert Johnson sold his soul, was not the guy with the horns and the pitchfork. The devil at the crossroad, I will surmise, was the Ku Klux Klan. Because in Robert Johnson's day, that's all there was. Work, sleep, work, Klan. And that was their reality. And that reality meant that their lives were completely, what's the word? Their lives did not matter at all. They could be killed indiscriminately. They could be killed in the street. And a lot of that started, now I'm going to refer to my notes. A lot of that started in 1873. In 1873, there was the Colfax massacre in Colfax, Louisiana. That started the process to Jim Crow. 1865 to 1872, Black men, men could vote. So free Black men could and did vote after slavery during Reconstruction, and elected representatives to go to Washington, D.C. Now, many people didn't care for that. Many former slave owners, many business owners who benefited from slave trade, many Confederate soldiers, and many citizens who just did not care to share with Black people, worked tirelessly against the federal laws that allowed Black people to have civil rights. In 1863, and this is where I really need to refer to my notes because I haven't solidified these dates in my mind yet, but I did write them down. In 1873, this massacre happened as a result of a vote that was going to ratify the rights of Black people. It was ratified, and people were marching to the courthouse to celebrate. They were met with former slave owners, former business owners, Confederate soldiers who shot them in the street. And it didn't just stop with that courthouse massacre. It actually went out into the community, and they were just going around killing Black people, right?
Indiscriminately.
So, indiscriminately. Men, women, children. And it was horrible. It was a horrible experience. That, of course, went to trial, but it was decided that the perpetrators could not receive a fair trial in Louisiana, so it was turned over to the U.S. federal government in a case called the U.S. versus Cruikshank. Now, I didn't hear about this in high school. I doubt that you did.
No.
But U.S. versus Cruikshank was, the Supreme Court decided that this was a state's issue and that the civil rights of Black people would be given to the states. That was in 1873. And what did the Southern states do? They implemented the Jim Crow laws. And the Jim Crow laws said that you couldn't go to the toilet here. You have to have this. You couldn't vote. They took away all the voting rights. And you couldn't use the facilities, and you weren't going to get, any participation in society. Medical care, Bessie Smith died because the hospital in Chattanooga didn't take Black people, even if they'd been in horrible car accidents. I was the first Black baby born in Bledsoe County Hospital in Pikeville, Tennessee. Prior to August 29th, 1960, all Black people were born at home with midwives. And if the doctor came, it would have had to been an extreme emergency. And the doctor didn't always come.
Wow.
This was the reality for millions of people. And it was this reality that created this blues. Okay, so these people live under these horrendous circumstances. Who are they going to complain? To whom are they going to complain? There's no one, basically. The federal government could not intervene. And that Cruikshank trial created this I took from Google, a profound negative effect on Reconstruction, because it interfered with Reconstruction, which you can still see today in the South. It's not, necessarily, some of these towns are not thriving, right?
Yeah.
A negative effect on Reconstruction and the federal government's ability to enforce civil rights laws. So for basically 100 years, definitely until Martin Luther King came along,
Yes, sir.
there was really no fair shake for Black people. Now, so this music came out of that. When I say psychologically, it was the way of dealing with this horrendous life experience. You could see your family members killed. You could see them lynched. You could see your children beaten in the King Richard, the movie about Venus and Serena Williams's father.
Mm-hmm.
He has a great book called Black and White, which I highly recommend. He came out of the Shreveport, Louisiana, Jim Crow experience, and it was horrible. He speaks of a situation where when he was about 8 or 9 years old, he was in a store and he was handing the money to the clerk. And in those days, Black people couldn't even touch white people. And so this little 8-year-old boy was handing the money to the man on the other side of the counter. His finger touched him. They took that little boy, Venus and Serena's father, out into the street, grown men, and just beat the shit out of him. Okay? He survived that. That was just one of many horrors of this man's life. And it's unfortunate that that thing at the Academy Awards happened, because that event completely eclipsed the story of Richard Williams. And unfortunately, some of the things that I think were important to bring to the public, i.e., this man survived Jim Crow to raise two of the greatest champions the world has ever known. That is an important story that never got told because of some bullshit with this actor, right? So that horrific life experience that was across the board, from Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, Mississippi, South Carolina, Florida, North Carolina, Oklahoma, Kentucky, Arkansas. It was horrible. Now, it wasn't great everywhere. I mean, Muddy Waters, at the height of his fame, couldn't buy a house in the north side of Chicago.
That's crazy, man.
Okay.
That's crazy.
I mean, Count Basie, at the height of his success in New York, couldn't build a house in Scarsdale. Okay.
I want to interject.
Yeah.
One thing that I learned about through having interviews with some Chicago musicians, and I don't recall who it was, whether it was John Primer or whom. They were forced to perform behind a curtain. They were not allowed on stage in the early days in Chicago. So they had to perform behind a curtain, and white people would come in to hear the blues from these Black men, but they couldn't see them.
Yeah. Yeah. That wasn't unusual. Jimmy Reed's first albums had a white woman on the cover. That happened a lot. In Las Vegas, there were artists who would go to Vegas and could sing on the stage, or even in New York, they could sing on the stage, but they couldn't come in as patrons. They couldn't stay at the actual hotel. You know, if they got a gig at the Hilton, they couldn't stay at the Hilton, but they
I've heard that. Yeah.
But so this psychology and this sociology, this broken spirit is what created the blues. In the same way that Africans took the scrap meat from pigs and turned that into delicacies, we took these horrific life experiences and turned it into music that would, I believe, allow us to balance it. And that is how we ended up surviving that, because that life experience that my grandparents and great-grandparents had to endure, you don't survive that without some balance. Yeah. And I think it's that music that did that. The music did that. So my TED Talk is how that life experience created this music that we all know and love today.
Yes. Sir.
I don't need to romanticize it. I don't need to say that Robert Johnson sold his soul to the devil to learn how to play the blues. No, right. Robert Johnson had to deal with the Ku Klux Klan, and his life was the blues. When W.C. Handy coined the phrase, the blues, he was talking about an utter sadness that came from that life experience. In fact, he wrote, I was sitting at a train station and there was a young man playing a guitar or whatever, and he was playing the most mournful, saddest music I've ever heard. W.C. Handy was not from the South. He lived, I think, in St. Louis. And again, while he didn't have equal rights, he wasn't getting lynched. He didn't have to witness people being lynched. He didn't have to witness people being killed in the street. So my TED Talk endeavors to raise that awareness so that if you're standing there clutching your Blues Music Award, okay, you know that award, what that award actually stands for. Okay?
Yes, sir.
When you spend, I don't know, when one spends hours and hours and hours listening to, I don't know, O.V. Wright, and you're going, how's he singing that? How's he singing that? What's that melody he's singing? What's he singing? And then you try to sing that melody. You need to know that O.V. is not a blues artist. This man is coming from a particular life experience, and that is what's fueling that notation that one tries to imitate. When I hear someone say, oh yeah, I discovered the blues, I was about 13 years old and I heard my first Stevie Ray Vaughan, and I just fell in love with the blues. And then through Stevie, I discovered that he listened to a guy called Albert King. And I just, really went back and I started listening to Albert King. And then from Albert King, I learned, I listened to, B.B. King and Freddie King and these artists that people pick and choose to quote love. They are not representative of the actual blues. They're just 3 or 4 people out of millions who had this particular life experience that resulted in the blues. In fact, I have often thought that the Blues Music Awards should not even be called that. They should have left it the W.C. Handy Awards, because W.C. Handy.
I never understood why they changed that, honestly.
Yeah, me neither. Because really, that's what it is. W.C. Handy interpreted the blues. You know what? Sir. Maybe that's a better. Rather than say imitate, we'll say interpret. So this interpretation of the blues, based not on real life experience, because I don't want to hear, I was a abused child, or I was a welfare mom from East LA. That is not the same thing as I was a sharecropper and forced to endure this horrible lifestyle my entire life. And my children then had to endure that exact lifestyle, and their children. My grandparents never saw the freedom. They got a glimpse of it. They did, but they didn't get to experience it as I have experienced it. I've often said I am my ancestors' wildest dream and their most vivid imagination, because I actually am the freedom into their world.
That is so damn powerful. This is why you and I have the conversations we have on and off this program, because I mean, you bring a perspective that most people don't ever consider. It's not
Right.
out of anger or spite. They don't
No, yeah,
consider because it's just not part of the consciousness.
exactly.
And it's really kind of cool that I chose this shirt to wear of all things. And
I know.
I'm not doing this for any
Yeah.
kind of a way to curry favor or anything like that. But a good friend of mine here locally in the Lansing area, African American gentleman by the name of Mocha Man. That's what he goes by. He's a musician,
Yeah.
very talented, very gifted. But he gave me this shirt as a gift, and he said, "I'd love to see you wear this once in a while, out and about." And wall to wall designs on Facebook. I had no intention of doing this. I'm doing it. If you want to get a shirt like this, great, go get it. Wall to wall designs on Facebook. But it really speaks to what you're talking about today.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it really makes what you, and I love how you found the term interpretation as opposed to
Imitation.
intimidate
Yeah.
or imitation. Yeah, because
Yeah.
it truly, that is the interpretation when you see
Yeah.
a musician doing that. So I want to talk about a couple more things here real quick, because you've got a really big day coming up this week. Matter of fact, it's on Friday, the 29th. And I hear that you're celebrating a birthday. You've got some amazing things happening. What's going on, man?
Well, you know what? Before I go there, there's one other point I'd like to make.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
About the knowing from where the blues came.
Yes, sir.
We mentioned, when we were talking about imitation, or now we're going to say interpretation, but I was saying that, Blues Music Award winner of the BB King Entertainer of the Year Award, whatever, is an interpretation of the blues and being recognized for that interpretation. I respect that. In the same way but that person is no more connected to the source of the blues than is a Leontine Price singing an aria in The Marriage of Figaro. Leontine is not from Italy. I don't know if she speaks Italian, but she's not Italian. She's not, married to Figaro. But the difference I'm going to say between the Blues Music Award winner and Leontine is that I know for a fact that when she took on the role in that aria, she could tell you where that song was written, from where it came, who wrote it, what it's about. She embodies the actual song, and then she delivers the aria. I don't see that so much with the Blues Music Award winners. I see a lot of, interpretation and presentation, but I don't feel like they are connected to where that comes from. And this is, again, where my TED Talk is hopefully to achieve, is gaining the knowledge of what you're singing about. Like I said, Etta James knew what she was singing about. That's why she could deliver my song like that.
Yes.
When you compare the two, you can hear that I don't know what I'm singing. I'm just an observer. I'm just an interpreter.
Right.
But she is delivering the song because she's embodied it into her own life. And so the Blues Music Awards, if you don't know who Fannie Lou Hamer is, you got to know who Fannie Lou Hamer is, because she was before Martin Luther King. Okay, everybody knows who Martin Luther King is, but they don't know they don't know Fannie Lou Hamer. And I'm not going to go into who she is, but look her up. Fannie Lou, Hamer, Hammer. And it's, again, and I'm going to get to the other thing in just a second. So the interpretation to me is like You've got all the symbols and numbers and square roots and signs and symbols of calculus on a blackboard. Everything's all there, all these numbers. It looks like calculus. And then there's an equal sign. But on the other side of the equal sign is a zero, because all of these numbers and signs and square roots and x equals, all that is not really saying anything, because it's not really calculus. Or it's like, if you're going to do statistics, you have to have had calculus first. But in order to do calculus, you had to have trigonometry first. In order to do trigonometry, you had to have algebra first. And then you have to have advanced math, intermediate math, basic math. Fannie Lou Hamer would be basic math. The Blues Music Awards would be the other side of the equal sign. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
So that said, my TED Talk endeavors to enlighten that the blues and gospel is the only free speech of the African American from 1872 to 1972, and deserves recognition, because those people made such a sacrifice. They made such a sacrifice that it must not be overlooked. It must not be romanticized and turned into some entertainment, some minstrel show.
Earl, would you say that is how we keep the blues alive, is by knowing the history and understanding the history more completely?
Absolutely. That term, keeping the blues alive, as
Yes,
it
sir.
stands in my mind today, is, yeah, we're keeping the blues alive, but it's on life support. It's on a ventilator. Okay. We could keep the blues alive. And again, as a griot, as a storyteller, you keep it alive by telling the story, by continuing the conversation, not by imitating the conversation. Okay. Interpreting the conversation.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I believe that it can be done. Okay. If you're
You just
coming
did
from,
it. You just did it.
yeah.
You're one person, but you just did it.
Yeah. I would recommend two things. Learn who Fannie Lou Hamer is, number one. That's very important. Watch a documentary, PBS series called Eyes on the Prize.
Okay.
Eyes on the Prize. It's like a long series, but it's well worth watching. It's the basically the civil rights movement from the early 1900s all the way through the Voting Rights Act and integration of the schools, Brown versus Board of Education, and it's worth watching. You must know the history. If you're going to imitate this music, okay, interpret this. If you're going to interpret this music, you should know from where this music comes, and you should know, in my humble opinion, one should know what this music actually represents before you start bragging about, I won this award for, I'm that because I've got this trophy. Okay. There's more to the story than the fucking trophy. Pardon my French.
And let me just say, I don't find anything that you have shared here to be adversarial or derogatory in any way whatsoever.
It's certainly not intended to be.
No. And I think that your points are very, very well taken. And thank you. Thank you for taking the time and being willing to share the contents of this. And I can't wait to see the finished product when it gets done.
Well, thank you for giving me this opportunity. This is like my dress rehearsal.
Yeah, that's cool. Hey,
I'll get to watch this and go, okay, I need to, work on this. And yeah.
I'm gonna give you a history lesson. Did you know that before Martin Luther King did his I Have a Dream speech in Washington, D.C., he did a dress rehearsal in the city of Detroit at a Methodist church right on Woodward across from the Fox Theater.
Yes.
Okay. I didn't know that. And I went and did a wedding. I'm a photographer. Went and did a wedding in this church. And I got to stand in that pulpit where the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King stood. And I went back and I did a study on his early iteration of the I Have a Dream speech. and how he presented it to that congregation on that Sunday in Detroit. And I thought, how cool to have that little bit of history and understand the value. So don't discount this dress rehearsal, because
Right.
I think that it's going to fall on ears that are very receptive, as well as should, you know.
Yeah. Well, did you know that I Have a Dream speech was not his intention at the March on Washington? It was actually Mahalia Jackson who said to him, "Do the I Have a Dream speech." He
No
was
kidding.
trying to decide, well, what am I going to talk? What am I going to do? And it was Mahalia Jackson that says, "Hey, Martin, do that I Have a Dream speech, the one that you did in Detroit." Yeah.
Wow.
And so he did it.
Wow. All right, let's flip the page, man. We got to get
Yeah.
to some good stuff here. I mean, I
29.
just we could do this all day, honestly.
I know.
And I
We
mean,
need,
there's
you know what? No, someday we're going to get together over a bottle of red and we'll have a really nice conversation.
absolutely. And you know yourself, I mean, we've had more than one conversation that went
Yeah.
well more than an hour. We're
Yeah.
already an hour plus into this one. And
Oh, gosh,
I'm
people will be
just
bored.
having the time of my life, man. I really am. It's good content. You know, it's
Right.
solid, it's good stuff. And
So my birthday.
Well, hold on for
Oh,
one
sorry.
second. I just wanted to say, and this isn't just about me, this is about the program. When I talk about preserving the history of the blues one story at a time, you just gave me some solid gold, man. You really did. And I want you to understand how deeply I appreciate that from you. I mean,
Thank you.
genuinely. So,
Wow.
all right,
Right.
let's have some fun here. Rumor has
Okay.
it you're getting ready to celebrate your birthday Friday of this week.
Yes.
I want to hear about the amazing things, something about an album release or something.
Yeah. Okay. So, on my birthday, I decided to release the Live at Ronnie Scott's album,
Okay.
Live in London, the gospel album. Why on my birthday? I'll tell you why. I recorded. Okay, so I come from my father was a blues man, and my mother was a gospel singer.
Okay.
My mother always told me that I was a gospel singer, but I wanted to be Mick Jagger. I didn't want to sing. I want to be Rod Stewart, right? I wasn't really into the whole gospel thing, although I knew the songs. I recorded the album in London on my dad's birthday, November 12th. And I released the digital album on my mom's birthday, June 17th. So I'm going to release the actual LP album on my birthday, August 29th. And that album is, I talk about the blues and gospel being the only free speech of the African American. Well, that album is, and I didn't coin this phrase, but it is gospel with a bluesy beat. Somebody wrote that in one of the Ticketmaster comments.
Nice.
He said, I quote, "I didn't care for the Earl Thomas gospel show. It's just gospel with a bluesy beat," unquote. And I thought, oh my God, that's exactly what it is.
I'm going to
steal
adopt that. Yeah.
That's my model. That's my logo, dude. Gospel with a bluesy beat. So,
wow.
And it is. It literally is. So I'm releasing that on my birthday, which is my 65th birthday, I might add.
Happy birthday, brother.
Thank you. And I have this, I'm going to do a show at the club that I first started singing here in San Diego, a place called Winston's.
Yep, put it out there. Let's hear about it. When, where, and how much are tickets? Go.
Okay. At Winston's in Ocean Beach, Winston's OB, 1921 Bacon Street in Ocean Beach, which is here in San Diego. WinstonsOB.com. You can find the information. It's the first place I ever sang and actually got paid. I was a student and I had a little garage band in school and we played all the frat parties and dormitory parties and shit, but I never really had a gig for real. I wasn't ever in a real working band, but then I came to San Diego, joined the Rum Boogies, and we started playing at Winston's. That band ended and I went to Bill Winston and I said, "Hey, listen, what is your slowest day of the week?" he said, Sundays at 5. And I go, well, I would like to use your venue, your stage, to rehearse my band, the Blues Ambassadors. And he goes, oh yeah, come on in. No worries. Nobody's going to be here. I said, I don't need your PA. I just need we just need a place to do this. So we went there on that Sunday and we started rehearsing. And there were a couple of drunks at the bar, all right. And then the next week we went and some people were walking by and they heard some music and they came in and they stuck around for a minute and we told them, yeah, we're here rehearsing every Sunday. So they came back the following Sunday and they brought a couple of friends. So we went from 0 or 2 people to 4 people to 8 people to 12 people to 20 people to 50 to 100 till you could not, Sundays at 5 p.m., you could not get in the place.
Wow.
If you didn't get there by 3, if you got there after 3, you were not getting a seat. And if you got there at 5, you were going to wait in that long line around the block. This thing turned into such an event in San Diego.
How cool, man.
And as far as I know, no one had ever done anything like that before us, nor has it been done since. So on my 65th birthday, I'm celebrating being 65, still in good form, thanks to the genetic breeding they did during slavery. I still can, I'm still there. I am really genuinely pleased to present this new ensemble that I've put together with Anthony Cullens and Jody Bagley, Noah Williams, Kyra Wilcox, and Edward Cleveland. It's really I always knew that if I could get these 5 musicians together, that I could throw a knockout punch, and I got them together. And Funky Street was our first song, and man, that's a knockout punch. It really is.
I will make sure that all these links are going to be up there, because when you see Funky Street, it's a short little blip, but damn, it was fun. It was fun.
Yeah. I mean, it embodies all of my musical. Okay. You know what? I can't rule out Ike and Tina Turner. They're number 1. So there's elements of Ike and Tina Turner in there, but I also can't rule out Sylvester. Sylvester, I don't give a, yes, disco diva, but Sylvester had it going on. He introduced gospel to disco. So Sylvester's in there. That's where that, that's Sylvester, dude. And then Ike and Tina are in there. Rod Stewart, the Rolling Stones, Wilson Pickett, Arthur Conley. It's all of my musical vocabulary is in that one song. And I'm very proud of it. It's really, and it's gathered some momentum. We jumped up to like almost 20,000 views in 2 weeks.
Damn.
It's really,
that is so cool. That is so cool.
It's a record for me,
All right, man. You know the drill, Earl. Where can we send folks to learn more about you other than these 2 interviews? Maybe buy some merch or music, or book you for a gig.
You can go to my website, earlthomasmusic.com. earlthomasmusic.com. You can write to me, send me a note, and we'll just stay in touch. earlthomasmusic.com. And I do Biscuits and Blues the last Saturday of every month. So if you're in San Francisco, come on down. And the month of August, though, I'm doing that on the 23rd instead of the 30th.
Right.
But normally we're there on the last Saturday of the month.
Well, Earl Thomas, man, I appreciate you so much. I appreciate your time. And most of all, I appreciate your friendship. It's refreshing to me to have someone to talk about so many different things with. And I can honestly say that our conversations always cause me to think deeper about the subject matter. And I appreciate that. And thank you for another stellar interview here on Time Signatures.
Thank you. Thank you. Really. It's my pleasure.
All right. Well, as we come to a close on this edition of Time Signatures, I want to tell you about the Capital Area Blues Society based right here in Lansing, Michigan. CABS began its run in the fall of 1994, and they've built a strong presence in Central Michigan, offering the annual Blues Brawl, where the band and solo duo winners are sent to Memphis to compete in the annual International Blues Challenge on Beale Street, but there's also a lot more. We also hold an annual Breaking Bread with the Blues, offering a day of blues music and a chance to raise funds and food donations for the Greater Lansing Food Bank. Oh, by the way, CABS also presents this program, for which I am eternally grateful. As with all nonprofits, the Capital Area Blues Society is always looking for donations, so please consider a tax-deductible donation today. You can visit capitalareablues.org and make your donation there in any amount. And as always, thank you for your consideration. And that wraps up this edition of Time Signatures. Once again, my thanks to our guest, Earl Thomas, but also to you, for without you, none of this would be possible. Absolutely none of it. Jim Ervin reminding you, keeping the blues alive is everyone's responsibility, but preserving the history of the blues, one story at a time, is my mission. Until next time, so long, everybody.
This has been Time Signatures with Jim Ervin, presented by the Capital Area Blues Society in Lansing, Michigan. For more information on CABS, visit capitalareablues.org. You can find this episode and past episodes at lccconnect.org. The Time Signatures theme song, Michigan Roads, is used by permission and was written by Root Doctor, featuring Freddie Cunningham.
You know I'm trying, baby, driving up and down these Michigan roads, yeah.
Until next time, keep on keeping the blues alive.